Welcome to the Authentic Life Connection podcast. I'm your host, Seth Lusk. I'm a master certified life coach, author, personal trainer, and nutrition specialist. For over a decade, I've been helping people with their dreams and goals for their life and health. I spent many years watching people get frustrated with their journey in life and giving up on taking actions towards their goals. So I dug in deep to find answers to why so many of us face this same frustration and struggle in life. So in this podcast, we're going to dive in deep on topics surrounding what it means to consistently live a fulfilling and authentic life, where you are unstoppable in taking action towards your dreams and goals. So the only question is, are you ready to start living your most authentic and fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. For those of you listening in for the first time, welcome. You picked yet again a fascinating episode to listen in on this week. I'm going to say if you're a new listener, it's perfectly fine to listen in on this episode. I will say that there are 3 other episodes that will put some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today into context for you, maybe a little bit clearer. So the first 2 episodes are actually the 2-part series that I did on escape debt. So I would recommend going back and listening to those either first or after you listen to this episode to kind of give some clarity to what we talk about today. Also, I did an episode just last week called YOLO, Do You Know How to Actually Enjoy Life? And we talk a lot about this escape behavior in that episode as well. So I would recommend listening to that episode to help put into context what I'm talking about in this episode, because I'm going to reference this escaping behavior quite a bit today. Because guys, this escape behavior is kind of at the center of a lot of the issues that we see humanity facing today, but we're kind of taught to overlook it or look at it as if it's sort of innocent or not a problem, not something we want to look at or pay attention to. But it's actually where the solution to most of our suffering lies, is paying attention there and looking at what we can do differently as humans in this area of this escape behavior, this numbing behavior, this behavior that's about immediate gratification and getting a constant high dose of dopamine. So this week, we're talking about hustle energy, like this hustle energy or the grind. Some people might call it the grind. And guys, we've got a ton of information to cover today. My outline is several pages longer than what my outlines normally are for these podcast episodes. So strap yourself in, get comfy, get a cup of tea, get a cup of coffee if it's in the morning, get yourself a glass of water, get comfy, get ready to listen, because I'm going to be sending a lot of information your way in this episode. I'm hoping to bring some clarity here, because there is so much to talk about. And what I talk about today is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this topic of hustling or the grind. So yeah, we're gonna open this up today, and I've got a lot coming your way, so just get comfy, get ready to listen. As a life coach, I work with many people on many different aspects of their life. One of the biggest areas that people want support with, other than health, is they want guidance in the area of their career or how they're making money. A lot of goals that people have for their life involving making money in a certain way, whether that be creating a business or creating a certain career path for themselves in a specific field that they're interested in. And then along with goals in this area, we have goals that have to do with weight loss, fitness, and many other areas of life that come along with this idea of reaching towards goals and working hard towards those goals, hitting the grind, getting into the hustle energy. So yeah, this is what I want to talk about today. For those of you who aren't familiar with what the term hustle means, it can have actually several meanings, but how we're going to talk about it today is basically talking about this energy of giving everything that you have and not letting anything distract you from and giving your full focus on the objective of moving towards your goal and getting work done with willingness to do anything that is authentically within your power to do to reach that goal. And this authenticity part is a huge part, my friends. So we've talked about this before in 2 episodes ago when I talked about the point of setting big goals. Um, so yeah, we've talked about this concept before, and so many people, they see the point of setting the goal as being to achieve the goal and to achieve it as fast as possible. And we talked about, when we talked about the whole point of setting big goals, that the whole point isn't actually about the achievement of the goal. You can achieve the goal, but that's not actually the point. The point is the journey. The point is everything that you're going to learn and grow from and change your life by taking the uncomfortable new steps towards that goal. So that's actually the point. But so many people approach their goals from the point being to achieve the goal. And when you approach a goal from this mentality, it can become very easy to get wrapped up in this hustle mentality in a way that comes at your expense and actually harms you. And so I want to clarify that, because hustling is not necessarily bad. And I know there's this whole anti-hustle community out there. But I want to talk about this. I don't want to demonize hustling, because I'm not trying to say that hustling is bad at all. So don't shut me off if you think that's what I'm about to say here. I don't want to talk badly about hustling in and of itself. And I also want to be clear that hustling from a space where the purpose of your goal is to be in the journey and to exercise your ability to face adversity, feel the feelings of shame, feel the feelings of rejection, feel the feelings of failure. When you approach your goals from this perspective, then hustling can have a very beneficial energy that I want you all to be able to take advantage of here. So today, this is what I want to clear up. I want to talk about some of the big drawbacks that I see when it comes to people approaching this hustle energy, so that you can use it in a way where you're not getting sucked into those drawbacks and hustling at your own expense, and instead being able to use hustle energy in a way that benefits you. And I want to talk about some of the reasons why this hustling at your own expense happens, and what we can do differently to hustle in a healthy way, in a productive way, where we take actions towards our goals in life in a way that we're unstoppable, but it's not at our expense. So yeah, this hustle energy, like I said, it's all about no excuses. Give it all you have. It's about pushing and challenging yourself, which is a great idea. It's great energy. It's about motivation and excitement. But oftentimes, I see this creating some unhealthy practices in people's lives. So the first drawback that I want to shed light on when it comes to hustling is when hustling comes at your expense. And actually that is the drawback of hustling. It's the one drawback, and then it kind of breaks down into several different ways that this becomes a drawback. And I know this sounds really obvious, that you don't want to hustle at your expense. Everyone's like, oh yeah, don't do it at your expense. But I see a lot of you out there getting confused about what this actually means to hustle at your expense. And I see people going to two extremes with this. Either we just are like, oh yeah, screw it. Those people that don't want to hustle at their expense, they're being lazy. So we'll just go and, kill ourselves in the process. It doesn't really matter. Just keep working, no excuses. Or it's the anti-hustle camp that I talked about. So yeah, this first extreme, the hustling at their expense. And by this, I mean that things like they're not getting enough sleep, they're not caring for their emotional, mental, or physical health at all. And it's just this energy of keep pushing no matter what you're feeling. As long as you're still alive and your body will let you, then you hustle. And I've seen people hustle themselves right into a hospital with this approach, right into depression with this approach, right into unable to get out of bed with this approach, into autoimmune disorders with this approach. So this is definitely hustling at your expense. And the other extreme is the exact opposite of this. Because I see this other community out there of people who believe in this idea that when you have a goal and you decide to work towards it, that the first sign of a feeling of something being difficult or uncomfortable or stressful, and their body gives them a sign that this is a bit more work than we're used to, then they see this signal as a signal to shut down and stop. Like, this is too much. We shouldn't be pushing ourselves. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't feel hard for us. It shouldn't be a challenge. It should happen with ease. It should be about a pampered process through the building. Everything should be easy and pleasurable. And, there's this whole idea that's like anti-hustle. It's like the opposite extreme of hustle until you just like can't do it anymore because literally your body won't let you. So these are the two extremes. And I see people going to these, and the people in the extreme of being anti-hustle, what I see happening is instead of it being at their expense of them like getting worn out, exhausted in a hospital, I see them just giving up on taking action towards their goal at the first sign of a physical challenge. And so the harm comes at their relationship to themselves and their goals. So it's still at their expense. And so that's what I want you all to begin to see today. And what I'm going to kind of bring some clarity to is that both extremes here come at your expense. So not challenging yourself, thinking that things should be easy and trying to make everything easy and happy and, everything is just kind of like if it flows and there's no difficulty, there's no challenge, this isn't caring for you or your body either. And I think what helps kind of bring this into some clarity here to help people understand what's going on and why I mean this is that there is this concept, or these two concepts really, well, one concept with two words within it, is the difference between eustress versus distress. And so when you're in the camp of everything should be easy, there should be no stress there should be it should be a pleasure and everything should just be fun and happy all the time and good and not challenging and not difficult. And, then we also we end up creating distress for ourselves instead of eustress. So yeah, this concept of eustress versus distress. When we think about stress, the version we often think about is distress. And what's funny is that when we think about distress, we think about it as overworking, and overworking is the only way to create distress. But did you know not having enough eustress in your life is also actually distress for the body? Not having enough challenge on the body, not having enough work for the body, not having enough movement for the body is also distress for the body. The body becomes dysfunctional. It doesn't know how to function anymore, and it slowly starts to shut things down because it's like, okay, well, we're not using any of this. Let's just start getting rid of it. I guess we don't really need to be alive anymore. So not challenging yourself is just as distressful for the body as over challenging yourself. So this is the stress we usually tend to think about when we think about stress, is this negative impact on the body, on the central nervous system, on all systems in the body. And usually we see it as being a symptom of overworking, but I think we're also starting to see now some of the distress that comes along with just seeking pleasure all of the time and not challenging yourself. We're seeing, diseases that are happening now from people literally just trying to do everything to stay comfortable and be in pleasure mode all of the time. We're seeing diseases of overindulgence and a lack of challenge, a lack of stress, like eustress on the body, and what this creates. So yeah, when we talk about this concept of eustress versus distress, so eustress is the stress that we put on the body that makes it capable of recovering and building itself in a stronger way. So that's eustress, and then distress is the one that most people think about when we think about stress. So eustress, a great way to understand this concept of eustress, you might be like, well, how is stress beneficial? In what way is stress helping us to, rebuild and recover and whatnot? So eustress, here's a great way to kind of see eustress, like how to understand what eustress is versus distress. So it becomes really easy when we talk about exercise. When we talk about exercise, we always think about the gains that we get from exercise. So whether that's more strength, more endurance, more, just vitality and energy in the body, more muscle mass, less excess body fat on the body. So we think of all these benefits of exercise. So the reason why we see these benefits from exercise is because of this concept of eustress. So eustress would be like, if we think about the bicep muscle, which is the muscle in the front of your arm, on the upper part of your arm. It's the things that people flex when they want to show how strong their arm is. That's the bicep muscle. So I want you to think about your bicep muscle. It's basically the muscle that helps you be able to curl your arm and flex your arm. So if that muscle is capable of picking up 2 kilograms, let's say it can comfortably pick up 2 kilograms and do that over and over and over again, quite comfortably for some time. So if we want to make that muscle stronger, we go to the gym and we put it under eustress. So eustress would be picking up a weight that's a little bit more than what the muscle is used to picking up. So maybe we do 2.5 kilograms or we do 3 kilograms, or maybe we're a little bit, overzealous and we pick up 3.5 kilograms. I don't know, but we pick up a little bit more than what the muscle is comfortable with lifting. So we'll say we pick up 3 kilograms and we lift it and we lift it and we lift it until the muscle starts being like, hey, this is getting really difficult. And it starts sending us this burning sign. It's like, maybe we want to stop for a second so I can recover. We put down the weight. We recover. We pick it up. We do it again. And when the muscle starts giving us that signal, we set it back down. We rest. Maybe we do this 3 or 4 times. Okay, so then we put away the weight. We're done with exercising the bicep muscle. Then what do? The bicep muscle rests. And then we eat food. And we give the body the proper nutrition for it to go in and be like, okay, so this muscle was damaged a little bit today through lifting a little bit more weight than what it's comfortable with. So let's send some proteins this way. Let's send some electrolytes this way, some minerals this way. And we're going to repair this micro trauma done to the muscle tissue. And while we're at it, it looks like this person might be starting to use this muscle more than what we've been using it for. So why don't we build it a little bit stronger so that it doesn't get damaged as easy in the future? So this is how we build muscle tissue in the body, through eustress. We stress the muscle so it has a little bit of damage. It's pushed outside of what it's capable of doing a little bit more than what it's comfortable with. And then it creates a little bit of eustress on the muscle, and then the body comes in and repairs it. So then distress in the gym would be going into the gym and being like, okay, I want to hurry up and have a big bicep, so I'm going to pick up 10 kilograms and try and lift that, when really it's only used to you lifting 2 kilograms. So we lift, and then all of a sudden we hear a pop, or all of a sudden we feel this pain in the muscle. Basically what has happened there is, instead of creating the little micro traumas of the muscle being like, this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I'm going to try, I'm going to push. Okay, now we've reached the limit, stop. So instead of that, we've taken on way too much, and the muscle's like, okay, well, I'll try and lift it. Oh God, no, I can't, snap. And then we have macro trauma. So when we have macro trauma to the muscle is now in distress. You cannot use that muscle. That muscle is damaged to the point where using it is going to create more damage. More and more damage that the body's not going to be able to keep up with the amount of repair work it needs to do. So that muscle needs to be rested entirely. No use of it, rested entirely. Sometimes this results in, a sling, a cast, whatever, something to keep the limb immobilized so that you don't use that muscle. And the amount of time that it takes for the body to repair the damage, the macro damage done to the muscle, ends up resulting in the muscle is actually weaker once it's done repairing itself, because it takes so long to repair. And then you have to start slowly rebuilding that strength back to where it was in the beginning, and then you can kind of slowly push past it. So you can kind of see here when we talk about exercise, the difference between eustress and distress. Distress is when we get overzealous, we push too far outside of our comfort zone to the point where the damage that we're causing cannot be recovered from faster than we're causing it. And so therefore we end up not having results that move us towards our goal. We end up moving further away from it because we are in distress. Okay. So now that you kind of understand this difference between distress and eustress, you can also understand why there is, in exercise, by seeing this example, you can see stress is a positive thing. Stress has a positive outcome depending on how you approach it. And if you are gradual with it, and actually your mindset towards it plays a huge role in how your body will view the stress, especially when we start talking about emotional and mental stress, whether it becomes distress or eustress. Okay? So I want you to understand here that even though a lot of people see stress as being something that is very negative, we want stress in our lives because eustress has a positive benefit in our life. And it's necessary in our life to push us outside of our comfort zone so that we grow, we become stronger, and we don't just get weaker and weaker and weaker and slowly just deteriorate. Okay? So we see that with exercise. This also applies in every other area of our life. When it comes to how we approach our life and challenge ourselves mentally and emotionally, not just physically. Every other area in our life, this eustress versus distress model applies. So for those of you out there that are like anti-stress, anti-hustle, I need you to understand this isn't benefiting you either, and it's actually going to end up creating distress in the body too, because eventually it gets to the point where the body is not capable of doing anything without it being distress. because you're just letting everything atrophy. And that doesn't just apply for muscles and physical parts of the body, it also applies to our mental health and our emotional health. Okay? So, the difference between eustress and distress is if the stress has a negative or positive overall outcome on the other side. So think again back to the muscle. If I lift way too much weight, the muscle snaps. And then I have to rest it for, 3-4 months. And I lose the strength that I already had. So I don't even gain any strength. And in the end, after I'm done resting the muscle, it's actually weaker than it was to begin with when I tried lifting the 10 kilogram weight. So there's a negative net outcome on the other side. And then eustress is when I gradually increase the stress just a little bit outside the comfort zone. And it's uncomfortable. And then I rest, repair, and then go back and I do a little bit more just outside the comfort zone, and I slowly build up that sort of strength or that resilience to the stress, so that stress is eustress. And then also more stress can actually become eustress for us. We're actually capable of handling more stress and it being eustress for us versus distress. So I hope that's kind of clear for you by using that example of exercise, but I just want you to understand this also applies in all other areas, and it's going to help you understand what I'm talking about here as I go into talking about hustling and how it comes at your expense, or you can do it in an authentic way. So this is how this applies to the concept of hustling. When it comes to hustling, if you're taking one of these polarized sides of either just hustle, hustle, hustle until your body falls apart, or, zero desire to stress yourself out at all or challenge yourself because that's bad, then what I want you to see here is that neither one of these approaches is going to be beneficial and is actually going to put you in a state of distress for the body, the kind of stress that's not having a positive outcome on the other side. So, as I said in the beginning of the episode, I want to bring some awareness to the ways in which the hustle, or the complete opposite side of the hustle, actually ends up coming at your expense. I want you all to begin to see, whether or not you've reached that point that this is coming at your expense. And this is why working with a coach is so important in this area, because a coach is going to help you find and be able to see and decide for yourself where this line is, where either hustling or avoiding hustling is coming at your expense or not. But here are some of the kind of like universal concept rules that they have. And I want to say here, okay, because this always goes into dangerous territory. And so I want you all to understand this up front. Each and every one of these points is going to have a very authentic line in your life that is not going to be in anyone else's, okay? So while I'm going over this today, I want you to understand this is not a how-to guide, because you have to find your how-to, and this is why I say working with a coach here is beneficial, because they will help you find your how-to, not just listen to this and be like, oh, so the universal law is for all humans, this is where you stop and this is where you start, because no, it's going to be different from person to person. But here are some of these universal concepts that maybe it helps you start to see whether or not you are doing this at your expense. And then maybe you want to start working with a coach to find out, okay, where is my line so I can stop doing this at my expense? Okay, so the first area where this can start coming at your expense is with your physical health. The most obvious one that I see when it comes to hustling is sleep. This is fairly obvious, but you would be surprised at the number of people who will neglect sleep, and they don't realize it, or they think it's not important enough to pay attention to. They're like, oh, yeah, I get that sleep is just, that the science says that it's not beneficial, but it's not that important to pay attention to, so I'm just going to keep on hustling, and I'll deal with the sleep deprivation later. And they really minimize the importance of sleep, because my friends, sleep is a non-negotiable, okay? It is a non-negotiable. And I see so many of you out there wearing it as a badge of honor that you stayed up all night working and then got up and went to work the next day, and you just do this all the time because you're such a hustler and such a warrior or whatever. And you do this on repeat and act like it's something honorable or virtuous that you're doing. And my friends, no, it's not honorable or virtuous. And in fact, you are doing some serious damage to your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health, that while you may not notice it now, you will pay for big time in the future. This is not an if, it is a will happen. So I want you to understand there is maybe less than 1% of the population that can get away with regularly not sleeping for 7 to 7.5 hours a night. And I think the current recommendation is 7.5 hours. Less than 1% of the population that isn't going to have a massive negative impact by regularly sleeping less than 7.5 hours. And even then, there's still a slight negative impact, but they can get by with it without it having as much of a huge impact. So my friends, if you think, oh no, I'm just one of those special people that doesn't need enough sleep, wake up call, you're not one of those special kind of people because they don't exist, okay? So stop thinking that. Stop thinking that this is like a badge of honor to be like, oh, I don't need sleep. I'm strong enough. I can sleep later when I've accomplished my goal. No, okay? Whatever the reason, my friends, sleep is a non-negotiable essential. It's not a luxury. It's not the thing that you think about getting enough of once you get everything else in order. It is the first thing you get in order to be able to get everything else in order. 7.5 hours of sleep is the current recommendation. I would say that if you are getting less than this to hustle, then it is time to work on how you are prioritizing your time in your schedule in order to be able to make time for enough sleep. If you are not able to make time for enough sleep in your current scheduling, then your current scheduling is a problem. And there is a solution. I don't care what you say, there is a solution. And if you don't believe me, set up a discovery call with me and I will help you find that solution. Okay? And it will be one that is authentic for you. It's not going to be like, I'm going to tell you how I did it. I'm going to show you how you can authentically rearrange your schedule to make time for sleep. It will happen. Okay? Promise. Okay, but it's not just about making time for sleep here that I see people sacrificing. It's also about quality of sleep. And this means having a regular bedtime, having a regular waking up time, having a nighttime routine that allows for falling asleep on time and getting enough quality sleep. And this means things like not eating or working up until bedtime or up to a certain time before bedtime. Sleep quality and sleep hygiene are essential to quality of life and your ability to consistently and unstoppably produce results in your life. If you are ready to hustle, sleep is the last thing on your list that takes a hit. Okay? The very, 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 very last thing that takes a hit. Otherwise, your hustle is going to become a limping crawl through life really quick. I promise you that. And like I said, working with a coach here to create a routine that encourages quality and quantity of sleep while getting productive work done during the day, that's a great idea for you to find your line of how you create this for yourself and not be sacrificing your sleep at the expense of your hustle. The other extreme to this is I see people who just claim to be tired all of the time and that they need so much sleep that they can't get enough during the day and they can't get enough done during the day to reach their goals. And my friends, this is a sign of a few different possible issues. One being depression, which is something that you want to know about and manage with a therapist or coach, because working with the two together is actually quite beneficial. I have many of my clients who are also seeing a therapist in tandem with me while we're working together, and they and their therapists both agree that they see more results, better results in combination, like having the combination of a coach and a therapist. The other thing that can be a sign of sleeping so much is this is a sign of avoidance. So you may not be clinically depressed, but I see people who sleep to escape their life and avoid what they are afraid of looking at and managing in their life. They're afraid to wake up and be confronted with their distress that they've been creating in their life. So if you feel like you need so much sleep that you cannot get what you want to get done during the day, then my friends, working with a coach here could be helpful. Working with a therapist here could be helpful because, my friends, this is also at your expense. Another issue I see this being a sign of when people just sleep and sleep all the time is that there is a lack of quality of sleep that the person is getting. And this could be due to a whole lot of things. It could be due to poor eating habits, drinking alcohol at night before bed, too much caffeine, too late in the day, racing thoughts at night, working too close to sleep, too much light in the room before sleeping, or taking their phone to bed with them and looking at their phone while they try and fall asleep. So many factors can play into the quality of sleep that a person is getting. So they feel like they just need to sleep and sleep and sleep. Other physical issues like sleep apnea could be causing, a lower quality of sleep. So this is something that you want to get managed because it's important to the quality of your life. It's important for you to be able to show up in your life and get things done. So I just want to show like the opposite extreme here of sleeping too much. That's also coming at the expense of your life. Okay, so the next way that this hustle can kind of come at the physical expense of your life is not getting proper nutrition. So this is another one that seems fairly obvious, but so many people neglect this. I see people that start to hustle and they fill up their schedule to do so many different things, and they do it at the expense of having time to prepare and eat quality food and to eat it in a way that is not also distressed. So I see people trying to live off of supplements, coffee, energy and protein bars, fast food, and foods that are just already pre-made and filled with preservatives. And then when they sit down to eat, they're like scarfing it in their mouth so they can hurry up and get back to eat, or they're working while they eat. And my friends, I just need you to understand this is distress for the body. Not being able to sit down and enjoy your food and be mindful with it. Chew mindfully, taste your food. Not try and scarf it in and try and, and you might be like, oh no, I taste my food. I love my food, while you're scarfing it in your mouth and swallowing, scarf and swallow, scarf and swallow. No. I'm talking about really taking the time to mindfully eat and chew your food. And my friends, this is also a tool to help you stop overeating, because when you shovel food in your mouth to try and deal with the stress you're under, you end up overeating because your body can't actually trigger the satiety signal faster than you're shoveling food in your mouth. Okay? So yes, this is another area where I see people sacrificing or hustling at their expense is the nutrition. So your nutrition is not the area of life to look at as make it quick and easy so that you can hustle. If it is the area of your life that you see as being the only option to make quick and easy to be able to meet your goals, then I would suggest it's time to sit down with a coach again and reassess your priorities and how you're prioritizing your time. Because again, nutrition is one of those things, just like sleep. You don't want to sacrifice this for your hustle, because then your hustle ends up being sacrificed too. Because without proper nutrition, that hustle, yet again, is going to quickly become a limping crawl through your life, okay? So sacrificing nutrition by not eating enough, by eating junk food, and not eating enough and not making time for quality food, that is the hustle coming at your expense. And then the other extreme is that I see happening here, where people who think that they just need to eat so much and they don't really work at all because they're so busy eating, and they do a little bit of work and then like, oh, I'm famished, I need a snack, I need to refuel after working for these last few hours. And so they just eat, and then they work for a couple of hours, and then like, oh, I need a piece of candy. And so my friends, this is also the opposite extreme of not really hustling and not really doing much work and constantly eating. And then you see your work coming at the sacrifice. You can't get enough done during the day because you're constantly snacking. So that's kind of the opposite extreme, where eating can kind of, sacrifice your hustle, or your hustle sacrifices the eating. So there's that balance in between. You don't want to go to either extreme here. All right, so another way hustling can have a negative impact or come at the expense of your physical health would be neglecting personal hygiene. And this one's fairly obvious once we bring it up, but actually most people don't think about this one when it comes to hustling. They don't really pay attention to the importance of personal hygiene until it's really out of control and someone's like, hey buddy, you got to do something here. So personal hygiene isn't just about appearance, guys. It's also about caring for your body. It's about cleaning the body properly to avoid diseases and infections. And this is sometimes overlooked. And it's also about, this is important, and this is also overlooked, it's about your relationship with yourself. Personal hygiene is also a way for people to build the relationship of importance with themselves, to take time to care for their body, to care for their skin, to care for their hair, to care for their face, to care for their mouth, and prioritize preparing themselves for the day ahead. Seeing your hair fixed in a way in which you feel empowered or sexy or prepared or professional, whatever that energy is you're looking for. Brushing your teeth, to reduce the cost of dental bills, but also to remind yourself that you are important enough to take the time to sit down and brush your teeth and have a confident, fresh smile that you don't mind flashing around all day and showing people. showering, wearing deodorant if you wear deodorant, wearing perfume if you wear perfume, to create a scent that carries you through the day, that creates a mood or an energy which you're ready to feel, to move into your day and be excited about your day. This is all ways in which personal hygiene is going to help you in your hustle. But if your hustle is coming at the expense of that, then your hustle is coming, well, at your expense. So another thing, showering helps reduce the risk of certain infections and skin diseases. So if hustling is like reducing your ability or time to have showers, my friends, your hustling is coming at your physical expense. Cleaning and changing clothes is another thing. And then choosing clothes to wear that create that feeling that you want to feel, that motivates you to show up as your fullest and truest self throughout your day. My friends, if your hustle is coming at the expense of personal hygiene, it is coming at your expense. And there is a line here, because there's the opposite extreme. Maybe you're someone who feels like you need 3 hours to get ready in the morning in order to be able to show up for your day and to be able to hustle. And my friends, this is where your personal hygiene is hindering your hustle. It's the opposite extreme. You're not wanting to push yourself into your day. You're wanting to avoid the day. So there is an opposite extreme here, and maybe your relationship with your morning routine, your personal hygiene has become perfectionistic, which is why you're spending so much time, or maybe it's about avoidance. And so this would be a good place to look with your coach if you find it that like you do take the time for personal hygiene, but actually your personal hygiene is what is hindering your ability to show up during the day and get the work done that you want to get done. So neither one of these extremes is what you want, because both of them come at your expense. Okay. Another way that we can talk about when it comes to how it affects your physical side of your health is eating or drinking too much to cope with stress from hustling. So this would be when we're in like distress. And this one is a bit different from the others, maybe also a bit more complex to understand how this is doing something at your own expense, because it actually feels like an indulgence, like a pleasure, like you're not sacrificing something, that actually stopping doing this is sacrificing something. But that's not actually the truth of what's going on here. The truth of what is happening here is that food or alcohol is becoming a coping mechanism for the distress you are creating from hustling at your own expense. So the stress from hustling isn't gradual. It's more than you're ready to handle, more than you're prepared to grow from. And instead of you learning and growing from it, you're using food to cope with the uncomfortable feelings of the stress. And maybe you're using alcohol to do it too, to numb out. So this is a sign that hustling is coming at your expense. If you find yourself eating or drinking alcohol to try and sort of take the edge off of your stress level, then that is a sign you're hustling at your expense. Because basically what you're doing here is this is a version of the escape behavior that we talked about last week. And escape behavior is always at your expense. It's always at your expense. It's at your expense in so many different ways. And if you don't know why, I want you to go back and listen to the episode from last week and also listen to my 2-part series on escape debt, because that's going to explain how this is escape behavior and how it's coming at the expense of your life. But we've got so much to talk about today. I don't want to really jump into that. So that is a way in which, again, hustling at your expense, this hustling can become at your expenses when you're hustling to the point where you feel like you need to eat a lot of food or drink a lot of alcohol to numb the discomfort of the stress of the hustle. The other extreme to this is not hustling at all, and then you're eating and drinking to numb out the feelings of disappointment that you have in yourself, of resistance to yourself because you're not going after your goals. And so you're bored with your life and you're eating or drinking to numb out of that feeling of boredom and resentment and disappointment in your life. So that's where the other extreme also comes at your expense here. So the last way that this can come at the expense, and we talked about it a bit earlier in the podcast episode, when it comes to your physical health, is doing more activity than the body is trained to handle, and this beginning to enter the zone of distress. So anytime we start to do something that is new, it could even be simply like getting up at a certain time. That is stress for the body if you haven't done it before. So if you're used to waking up just whenever you feel like it and you wake up at 9 o'clock every day and then all of a sudden you want to start waking up earlier and you set the alarm for 6. My friends, gradual. Maybe if you're used to waking up at 9:30, do a week of waking up at 8:30, and then let the eustress start to, your body adapts to waking up at 8:30, and then maybe the next week you start at 8, and then the next week 7:30, and then 7, and then 6:30, and then 6. Make it gradual, because if you just jump into these behavior changes, it can become distress very quickly for the body. And this is going to be when you hustle at your expense. And this goes for any new skill, any new behavior, anything new that you're doing in your life is eustress for the body in some way, shape, or form. And you want to take an intentional, gradual approach where it is constant, a little bit more eustress, a little bit more eustress, a little bit more eustress. So we're not slacking off here. We're not making it easy and comfortable. We are uncomfortable, but it's not to the point where, like in the example I gave at the beginning of the podcast, we're snapping the muscle and then it can't be used for the next 3 to 4 months. So we're doing this in a gradual way so we don't end up in that state of burnout and exhaustion and distress to the point where we're just like, you know what, I guess fuck it, I can't go towards my goals anymore, so I just have to give up. And now I've got to be like bedridden for the next 6 months, so what's the point in trying? That's what we're wanting to avoid, slipping past that line of eustress and into distress. So that is another way that hustling can come at your expense, because eustress needs to be gradual, okay? Otherwise, it becomes distress. And that's one way that hustling can come at your expense, is when you're not paying attention to that line of eustress and distress, and you slip over into distress, and then the body starts falling apart. Okay, so now let's move on to another category of ways that hustling can come at your expense. Let's talk about mental health expense. So again here, the first one I want to talk about, because it ties into this last one that we had under physical health, is non-gradual increases in eustress. So we can see with physical health, like if we distress the body, we're gonna be ending up laying on the bed, feeling like crap, getting sick physically. We start catching viruses and bacterial infections because the body is stressed out because we're not increasing the eustress gradually, so it becomes distress. The same thing happens with our mental health. Anytime we make an effort to change things about the way we're showing up in our life and we look at life, the way that we're approaching life from different mindsets, this is also eustress for our mental state. And if we're not intentional about gradually increasing that, then this eustress can quickly become distress for the brain. Okay? And then this is going to start coming at your expense. Start developing anxiety, start developing depression, start developing all sorts of different issues with, not being able to sleep at night because you're anxious and overthinking things, or perfectionism, or these obsessive thinking, or OCD, like so many different ways that you can develop disordered mental health from not taking a gradual and intentional approach with your eustress on your mental health. Okay, so the opposite extreme of this, though, that also is going to come at your expense, is never doing anything that's uncomfortable for the brain. Never asking your brain to challenge itself and think outside of how it currently sees things and believes things. And so the brain is never stimulated enough to learn and grow. And studies have shown that this leads to deterioration of parts of the brain that are involved in learning and growing, and that are also involved in keeping us feeling fulfilled and happy and like we're doing something in life, creating a positive dopamine response that is lasting in our life. And this has a strong correlation, I'm not saying causation, but correlation to the development of things like Alzheimer's disease later on in life. So my friends, avoiding anything uncomfortable, or avoiding trying to learn anything new, or avoiding trying to change your mindset in any way, shape, or form, or stretch it in any way, shape, or form, is also going to come at your expense. The brain is hardwired, of course, to resist learning new things, because it's wired from a time in which we either died or we learned new uncomfortable stuff. Okay, so the brain, it has this old wiring from a time where it was like either you learn or you die, which was very stressful for the brain. So the brain looked for ways to be like, okay, learn just enough so that we can create an environment where we can feel safe and feel like we don't have to keep learning and go into distress. So let's also find a way to learn things where we can create pleasure for ourselves, create comfortable situations for ourselves, so we're not going into distress. So the brain developed this wiring to encourage us to find times of rest from the learning so that eustress doesn't become distress. However, we live in a time now where we can do that all the time. We can constantly resist the discomfort of learning, because we're not going to die if we resist the discomfort of learning. We're not going to die if we resist the discomfort of changing our mindset and how we're approaching our life and learning new skills. We're not going to die if we don't do that. So now the same hardwiring is there, the same desire from the brain to resist the discomfort of learning, because it's coming from from a time where that was important to actually do, is to look for the opportunities where we can create enough comfort in our life where we don't have to constantly be out there pushing and pushing and pushing to learn, and then we end up in distress, and then our body starts to fall apart. So, my friends, the brain, yes, it's going to kick back on the discomfort of learning. So you don't want to go into the distress of learning where it's like the constant hustle, hustle, hustle. But then again, we don't want to let the brain's wiring of, okay, avoid learning, avoid the discomfort of learning, to convince us that we never want to be uncomfortable and never want to stretch our mental health or stretch our mental mindset and the way that we see the world, because that is also not healthy for the body or brain. But I get why you might think that, because the brain's going to give you clues to stop trying to learn and grow because it comes from this old time of wiring. So I hope that makes sense. Moving on to the next way that hustling can come at the expense of our mental health is ignoring signs of anxiety or depression. Okay? So here again, knowing the difference between eustress and distress, I see two extreme approaches here too, and I'm going to talk about how they both come at our expense. So one group is to take this no excuses approach, where you're just ignoring all signs and symptoms that the brain is giving you that you are in distress. The central nervous system is dysregulated, and it's asking for you to give it some attention so that it has time to re-regulate before you're in such distress that things start to fall apart, and then you need 6 months of just resting and not doing anything in order for it to repair itself. And so I see these people that just go until their body says, you know what, you're not listening to me, enough is enough, and literally puts them, excuse my French, but on their ass. It puts them on their ass. And then they're in this state of 6 months of recovering, and any benefit that they thought that they were going to get from hustling is lost, because now they're in a state where they're actually further from their goal than they were in the beginning when they started hustling. So and then there's the other extreme I see of people who have some signs of maybe some depression and anxiety, and they take this as a signal of, oh, nope, this means I can't do anything. No more taking action. I'm pushing too hard, feeling a little bit anxious, maybe have a little bit of depression. So obviously this means I have to just be comfortable, no doing uncomfortable actions in my life, no movement towards my goals, just stop. So both of these approaches come at a person's expense. And the solution is, again, to find that inauthentic sweet spot in the middle where it's like, yeah, okay, I've got some symptoms of anxiety or depression here, so this is my body warning me, hey, don't push too hard. Let's pay attention. Let's go at an authentic pace here. We can challenge ourselves, but we're not in a hurry. We're not in a rush here to get somewhere to feel better. We're making progress towards our goals. We can use this eustress here, but I'm just here to warn you, hey, don't go into distress. So I don't want you to ignore the signs of anxiety or depression, but I also don't want to encourage this idea that anxiety or depression are an excuse as to why a person is completely unable to do anything in their life or take any sort of uncomfortable action. Unless you've reached that point of such distress where you are in ultimate burnout, which I think we use that a little bit too early sometimes. We claim to be in burnout when actually what it is that we're just uncomfortable with the fact that we're challenging ourselves. So I want you to be able to find that authentic line for you where it's like, it is uncomfortable. There's a little bit of anxiety here. There are some symptoms here that are here to warn me, hey, don't push too hard. But I also don't want you to use those symptoms as a sign to be like, oh, nope, stop, because it's uncomfortable now. Okay, so that's another way in which, that hustling can come at the expense of your mental health, or the opposite extreme can come at your mental health. The last part of this, last category I want to look at is when we talk about emotional health. So this is a big one that I see people doing and ignoring and getting when they get into this hustle energy. And this is the denial of your true emotional experience, which is your emotional health. And we talked about this one a lot last week when I talked about escape behaviors, which is doing something that is designed to deny, resist, escape, or distract from a person's true emotional experience. And guess what? Hustling, even when it comes to an authentic goal, hustling can actually become one of those behaviors that is done in denial of a true emotional experience of life. And I see this happen with people quite often. And most people don't catch when they begin doing this. They set off on taking actions towards a goal that is authentic for them. They hustle, and then they reach a resistance point. And instead of leaning into the resistance to understand and take time to work through it, they start to panic that there's resistance, and they start to look for ways to hurry around it because it's uncomfortable for them, or to avoid the true emotional experience of it because it's uncomfortable for them, or they start going into other buffering behaviors to numb out the emotional experience of it, like overeating and drinking, all to avoid going through the true emotional experience in which they could learn and teach themselves and strengthen themselves through going through it. So I see that happen, or what I see is they just push forward and act like the emotional resistance doesn't even exist. They act like, oh no, I'm not upset, I'm not anxious, I'm not depressed, I'm not struggling with this, I don't feel fear, I don't feel anxiety, I don't feel any of this. So they just suppress it and keep stepping forward. They don't try and work around it. They're just like in complete denial and trying to suppress the emotional experience that they're having. And they're like, no, I'm perfectly fine. I'm just good. I'm fine. I notice when I hear people start saying this, I'm fine. It's fine. It'll all be okay. I'm going to be okay. Or they start saying things like, oh, it could be worse. Don't worry. It could be worse. I could, there are so many people that have it harder than me. Come on. There's nothing here to worry about. When I start hearing people use phrases similar to this or just like this, then I know they're in this energy of just pushing forward without paying attention to what they're feeling, what the true emotional experience is. And my friends, this is hustling at your expense, at the expense of your true emotional experience. Because true hustle is being able to notice when one of those emotional experiences come up and be like, pause, here's something important here. Here's something important here, and I'm excited to dive into this. This is part of my hustle. Not rushing through this. This is part of the hustle, because this is part of what's going to teach me to have better, or stronger approaches to eustress in the future when I move into these emotions and understand where they're coming from, where my thoughts and beliefs are that are creating these emotions, and how I want to responsibly act when I start noticing these emotions come up and when I'm creating them and how I'm creating them. Your emotional experience, my friends, is always there to show you something important. But I know that many of you fear being in this because you think the only option other than resisting an emotion or denying it or escaping it or avoiding the emotion is to go to the opposite extreme where your emotions control you and you are reactive to them. And then it feels like your emotions are making you do things against your own will because you are just giving into them and indulging in them and reacting to them. And this, again, my friends, is the example of the two extremes here. And the solution is neither. You see, paying attention to your emotions, learning from them, and choosing an intentional response with all of your emotions present is completely different than taking actions because of an emotion or reacting to them. And it's completely different than resisting an emotion and acting like it's not there or trying to get rid of it as fast as possible because we think it's a bad emotion. What we want is emotional responsibility, which I've talked about in many episodes before. I don't have time to get into it today. I would suggest going and listening to those episodes where I talk about emotional responsibility. So this is an example of where hustling starts to come at your emotional health, is when you're either doing it in resistance to an emotion, to escape an emotion, to avoid an emotion, or you're going to the opposite extreme. And this is coming at your expense, where you indulge yourself in your emotions. You become reactive to your emotions. You stop taking actions that would pull you towards your results that you want, towards the goals that you want, because you're feeling certain emotions and you want to indulge those emotions and react to those emotions. So you take actions that actually end up pulling you further away from your goals. Okay, so another way that we can actually hustle at the expense of the emotional health, and this one is the last one, and I saved it for last because it's huge, is when work is being done, hustle is being done to earn worth, to earn validation, or to earn acceptance. When hustling is being done for this reason, it is at your expense. When you hustle to try and hurry up to achieve something so that you can prove that you have worth, or prove what your worth actually is, then this is at your expense. If you are hustling trying to get a result so that you can feel better about yourself, so that you can feel acceptance, or that you are good enough, then this is at your expense. Because when you are doing this, you are creating more beliefs of conditional worth for yourself. And this is at the expense of your relationship with yourself, most importantly, but then also this will leak out into all of your relationships in life and with all of the people around you, and which you will subconsciously or consciously maybe even be putting more and more conditions on other people's worth too. And this is damaging in all relationships. And your relationship with yourself is what determines how you will show up in your life and what kind of life you will build for yourself or believe that you are even able to build for yourself. It's what determines if your life is a life in which you feel fulfilled or is a life in which you feel suffering. And like you have to constantly prove to yourself or to other people that you're good enough by achieving things. So, my friends, if you are hustling for this reason, then it is at your expense. Now, as with all of the ways we've talked about hustling today, and they can come at your expense, there is an opposite extreme here that will also come at your expense. The opposite extreme is not showing up to challenge yourself, not showing up at all, because you're afraid that if you don't rise to the challenge perfectly and get the results perfectly the first time, or within the first 2 times or 3 times, or whatever limit you say, oh, after this point, I'm a failure and I'm bad, I'm not good enough, this impacts your worth negatively. So basically what you do is you just don't do anything difficult or challenging in your life at all. And this comes at the expense of the relationship with yourself. And it leaks out into your relationship with others. It comes at the expense of your relationship with yourself because at the center of this is this belief that tells you to ignore your true desires. It tells you that your worth is too conditional and you're better off holding on to playing it small, never doing anything that could challenge you, because if you do, it might diminish your worth. Your worth is so fragile, your worth is so conditional, that if you do anything that's challenging for you and don't get it right the first time, your worth will be diminished. So this is at the expense of the relationship with yourself. And eventually this will leak out into how you look at others and their worth. It will impact how you judge others for showing up in their life and trying to grow and learn. And I know that many of you believe you can avoid challenge and avoid the feeling that you're not good enough by not challenging yourself. But here is the thing. In not challenging yourself, you're not avoiding that feeling of you're not good enough. What you're doing is you're just choosing to accept and believe it ahead of time before you take the action. You're not even giving yourself the opportunity to see what's possible for you because you're telling yourself ahead of time, no, you're not good enough. Because if you do this and you don't get the result, you're going to be completely worthless because your worth is simply in just staying exactly how you are right now. And if you change anything, you might lose that. It's so fragile. People might stop liking you and then your worth is gone. So my friends, you already believe you're not good enough. You already believe that your worth is conditional, even if you don't challenge yourself. Because what you're doing is you don't go after your truest desires. You tell yourself that they don't matter. You're not worth what the challenge that it would take to go out there and go after them and find what's possible for you. You have not avoided the feeling of feeling not good enough. You just chose it before you took any action to see what is possible for you to create in your life. So, my friends, with all this being said, all the ways in which hustling can come at your cost and your expense, and now that we've clarified that, and now that we've kind of clarified the awareness of how the opposite extremes look and how that comes at your expense too, I want you to think about this. The question becomes this: how do you find that middle authentic line in which you hustle towards your goals and give it everything that you've got, everything that you genuinely have, without crossing into that territory where it is at your expense? You cross into the territory of distress. So how do you do that? So the first thing to find your authentic line, the first thing here is, I know you guys may not want to hear this, but the first thing that is essential is knowing exactly where you are in your life to be able to figure out whether or not you're going to cross that line in your hustle. You need to figure out exactly where you are in your life and how you created being there. Meaning, what are you currently doing to create the results in your life that you currently have in your life? That is so important to spend time in that area first. Then you can move into exploring and clarifying your authentic values and sensitivities in life to establish what is important to you and why it's important for you in this life. That's where you move into next. And from there, it's important to create a mission statement with your roles in life that you've defined for yourself in an authentic way that's based on your values and sensitivities. And this helps you to see your true desires in life so that you can create goals for yourself that align with those. And then once you've created those goals for yourself, you're going to want to map out ahead of time the excuses and the escape routes that your brain's going to want to take to create resistance to the discomfort of this change. You will want to understand ahead of time how you have made a commitment to your goal and how that commitment is bigger than these excuses, but also why these excuses exist. This is important not to skip. You don't want to rush into this with this idea that you're just going to shove aside excuses and push past them. And, this isn't how excuses work. These excuses are there because they believe they're helping you and protecting you from something. So understanding this is essential to being able to plan out how your commitment to a goal is bigger than those excuses and how you can help that part of you that is using that excuse. You can help that part of you to trust you and get on board with continuing to move forward towards your commitment. There are a few other really intricate and very personalized steps involved here in these sort of beginning steps. And in this brief time that we have in this podcast, I don't have the time to jump into all of that with you. That's like, that's work. That's time one-on-one that you're going to want to spend with a coach. And it would just end up creating more confusion. So I'm just going to move on to kind of the next steps here after we've kind of got that clear idea of exactly where you are in your life, how you're creating it, what those values and core sensitivities are, and what it is what roles that you're going to play in your life, and how you authentically want to show up in those roles, and what your mission statement for life is, and therefore what goals come out of that you're going to go after. Once we have all that in place, from here, you can start to look at how you schedule your time in a way that creates movement towards those goals and allows you to allocate enough time to each and every one of your roles that have goals in your life, and how you're spending those times and prioritizing that time and kind of delving out and percentage-wise, like how you want to spend certain amounts of your time in each role and reaching towards what goals and what actions you're going to take in those roles. So and this way your schedule allows for you to prioritize what is important for you based in your values and your sensitivities and your genuine roles in life, in your authentic mission statement in life. And this way, when you schedule movement towards your goals, you can also schedule them a way where you gradually increase the eustress from where you currently are with your current ability to handle the eustress so that it doesn't move into distress. And as you start to take these actions and you're getting feedback, of course, you're going to learn, you're going to grow and apply what you learn and schedule your time to apply what you learn. And you're just going to start taking movement towards your goals and gradually increasing the eustress and how much you can handle without it becoming distress. And you become unstoppable in being able to move towards these goals. Now, when we do this, there are two important signals to pay attention to along the way here, because like I said, during this journey, we are going to be experiencing stress, and we want to stay on the side of eustress, not distress. So there are two important signals when we're out there, we're scheduling the time, we're scheduling the eustress, and we're doing it in an authentic way. We're trying to gradually increase it. You're going to want to pay attention to two signals here to help you kind of know whether or not you're moving into distress territory instead of eustress territory. So number one signal is, of course, to look at the signals that you're going to get from your body. So basically biological signs in the body. So signals from the body of distress can look like things like loss of appetite, craving too much food too frequently, a disruption in sleep quality or quantity, digestive issues, skin or hair issues, fatigue, loss of strength, loss in focus. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that if these signs are there that you need to stop, but they are a sign to press pause and reevaluate your level of stress and see if you're in distress territory and what is causing it. Reevaluate, are you in a rush to hurry up? And is it a story that you're telling yourself about the stress that is compounding it and making it feel like distress for you? Is it a story about how things shouldn't be this difficult that's maybe causing you to move into distress? Is it because you're comparing your journey to someone else's and taking inauthentic steps, and so you've moved into distress? So you want to kind of pay attention to these signals and then lean in and start asking some questions here. Not necessarily be like, oh, I'm getting fatigued. Obviously, I'm in distress. Got to stop. It's like, okay, I'm starting to feel fatigued. Let me lean in here and see if maybe I'm pushing myself here. Maybe I'm looking at my stress and creating distress out of eustress where it actually doesn't need to be distress. I'm just telling myself a story that stress shouldn't be here. So pay attention. You want to reevaluate, replan, reaffirm, set your intentions again, and then take your next authentic step in the realm of eustress, not distress. And then another signal that's really important to pay attention to here that's a little bit different, and it's maybe going to sound a bit funny at first. The signal of fear Okay? The signal of fear is really important to pay attention to when we're hustling and we're wanting to know if we're on that line of eustress and distress. Fear is your friend here. It's not something to react to. I'm not saying reaction to fear is your friend here, but fear is your friend when you lean in and pay attention to. So for instance, asking yourself when you notice fear, is fear telling you not to take an action because you might mess up and then feel ashamed? Because this is a possible sign to step forward into this because this is eustress. It's the stress you want to experience and learn from by taking action and getting different results and learning and then doing differently next time. This is eustress when it comes in this parameter. But it becomes distress when you beat yourself up for not getting the result and telling yourself how you shouldn't have done that, and you start belittling yourself and why did you do that? You're so dumb, and oh, you're a failure, and blah, 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 blah. Then it becomes distress. So pay attention to the fear. If it's telling you don't take the step forward because you might mess it up, you might fail, you might be ashamed, that's a sign that you have an opportunity to step into some eustress gradually, okay? The other side of this is maybe fear is telling you to hurry up. If fear is telling you to hurry up and keep doing more and more and more, because if you don't hurry up, you're going to end up giving up and you're going to fail and you're going to look foolish and your friends are going to look at you and be like, oh, you're not good enough. See, told you shouldn't have gone after this goal. My friends, this is a sign that you are pushing towards distress. This is a sign that fear is telling you, hey, pause, pull back. Pull back and get back into your authentic priorities, your authentic values and sensitivities, your authentic path to this goal. We're not looking at what everyone else is doing and what they're going to think about you. We're not looking at the fact that you're going to give up because you're not going to. You are committed here. Okay? So giving up isn't the option, but we're also not in a hurry. So reaffirm your unconditional worth. Reestablish that you're going after this goal to learn and grow, and that the point of this is the journey, not the hurry. It's not to hurry up and get there and feel better and feel good enough. It's about the journey. And then reassess that level of eustress that is genuine and challenging for you to grow in, but not based in that hurry up and get a result so you can feel better. Okay? So this is another way in which fear is a good signal to pay attention to know whether or not you're in that territory of distress or eustress. All right, my friends, this was a long episode today. We ran over an hour, okay? There's so much more to talk about here, and I really rushed through this stuff, so some of this may feel confusing. It may sound like I was making no sense to you. That's okay. If you have questions, I want you to reach out and ask them. The point of today is to look at the hustle and for you guys to begin to see that there is a way to hustle that's not at your expense, and that the opposite extreme of being anti-hustle isn't the solution here to make it not at your expense. Okay? Hustling is great. It can be a great way to approach your goals when you know how to not hustle at your expense. The key here is finding your authentic line of the right amount of eustress to move forward without slipping into distress in the process of hustling. So I hope this episode has brought some awareness and helps you with your hustle. That's what I want, my friends. I want to help you with your hustle. I don't want to tell you not to hustle. And those of you out here there who are anti-hustle, I want to show you how you can heal your relationship with hustle and do it in a way that is authentic for you, okay? I'm here to guide any single one of you into your authentic, unstoppable hustle that is about eustress and your authentic pace. Whenever you're ready, I'm here for that, okay? So if you're ready for that, if you want to talk to me about this, just head over to my website. You can book a free call with me to talk about how my coaching can help you here. And I would love to help any one of you in showing up for your goals in life with that unstoppable, healthy hustle energy. I love helping people step into this. So if you want to start doing that, just reach out. Like I said, the discovery call is free. You can book the call. It's not an obligation to work with me if you book the call. It's more to talk about whether or not my coaching is going to be beneficial for you and how it can be beneficial for you. All right, so that's what I've got for you today. I hope this brings some clarity, some awareness, some motivation. I hope it brings up some questions. You can also just reach out to me with your questions, my friends. I'm here to answer them. If you have some information that I brought up in this podcast that you're like, I'm not sure I understand here, feel free to reach out to me with that. I'm here for it. I'm here for it all, okay? I love you all. I love you very, very much. And I am so excited to see more authentic hustle in this world that's not at expense. And I want to see it from all of you, okay? So show up for it. And until we meet again here next week, ciao. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the content of this podcast. If you did, please subscribe so that you're one of the first people to know when I release a new episode each week. If you have any questions, or if you have interest in learning more about the coaching that I do with my clients one-on-one, then just head over to my website at www.lifecoachseth.com. That's www.lifecoachseth.com. There you're going to have the ability to reach out to me for questions that you might have, or to book your free discovery call with me to discuss what one-on-one coaching with me might be like for you. You can also check out and order your copy of my book to get a taste of what I'm all about as a person and as a coach. I'm so happy that you joined us today, and I hope to have you here again next week. So until then, let authenticity be the guide to your most unstoppable and fulfilling journey of life.